Hello again. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy over here for EliTheComputerGuy.com and EverymanIT.com. Today's class is HTML forms and PHP programming. So in the class today, I'm going to show you how to create forms in HTML and then have them pass information to a PHP script. So it's very important to understand as we progress in this PHP programming track that HTML creates static web pages. PHP creates dynamic web pages. So whenever we're going to be doing something like creating a form, we will code that in HTML. But if we're going to do anything with the information in that form, we will have to pass it to PHP. So PHP is what is able to write information to files, or write information to databases, or take information from a form and email it to somebody. All of that is done within PHP. HTML is simply the form itself. So we'll be able to create a text box or an option box or radio buttons using HTML. But as soon as you hit the submit button, all of that information gets sent to the PHP script, and then the PHP script is what actually does something, as in prints the information to the screen, like we're going to do today, or prints the information to a file, or sends the information to a database or to an email account. So today I'm going to show you how to do the HTML forms so that it sends the information to the PHP script, and you can see how all of this works. So if you give me a second, we'll dive into this class, HTML forms and PHP programming. So I want to take a second to make sure you understand what is going on here. Because again, with programming, what I have found is most people get a little bit confused, then that a little bit of confusion grows and grows and grows until they get really frustrated and simply give up. So if you really understand the concepts of what are going on, then you'll be able to follow along and all of this will seem a lot easier. Again, programming is not that difficult. Most people, the reason they think it's so difficult is because a whole bunch of information is thrown at them. They don't know what they should pay attention to and what they should disregard, and then it becomes a whole mess, and then they end up throwing their hands up in the air and saying, I give up. So PHP programming, like I say, is relatively easy as long as you understand what is going on. So in today's class, I'm going to show you how to create the HTML forms, and then for those forms to pass the information to the PHP script. So again, it's very important to understand that HTML is simply the static web page that you are looking at in your web browser. So like I say, when we go to a form, it is what creates the form. It is what creates the input box or the option box or the radio box. It is what has all of the writing. So if it says, contact form, HTML is what writes that. PHP is what does everything dynamically. So HTML is hard-coded. It is as it is. It passes information to PHP, and PHP is able to do things dynamically with the information. It is able to take information from forms and send it into text files, or send it to databases, or email the information to somebody, so to an email recipient. So HTML is static. PHP is what is able to do all the fancy, cool, nifty stuff that you see, what creates a dynamic website. Now in the future, when we go to actually dynamically writing HTML code with PHP, again, HTML will stay the same, but PHP is what will be able to write all of the HTML code so that it shows up in the web browser, however it is you want it to show up in a web browser. So as such as when we did the print command yesterday, it dynamically printed the name that we gave it, Bob or Mary or Joe. Basically, by the variable, it would then print the variable value instead of simply a hard-coded name. So it's very important that you understand this before we go forward. HTML is the static website. PHP is what does everything dynamically. Emails, prints to files, reads from files, and so on. I just have to I have to focus on that and make sure you really understand that, because if you don't get that, some of this will seem more confusing. Now, as we do the forms today, I'm only going to show you how to submit 3 types of information. So we're going to do a text box, we're going to do an option box, and we are going to do a radio button. So we're basically going to ask for somebody's name, we're going to ask for their t-shirt size, and then we're going to ask what gender they are. So a text box is where you can type in a name or an email address or any just text information. A option box is where you give them options. So on the t-shirt size, it'll say small, medium, or large. And then a radio button is where you give a number of options, and then they can only select one. It's kind of like an option box, only everything is printed out for you. You can also do check boxes. You can also do text areas. You can also do password boxes. But again, I don't want to make this too complicated for you. I want you to make sure that you can follow everything that I'm saying and you feel confident at the end of this. So at the end of this, if you understand how to create one of these forms and how to send the information to a PHP script, then you can go and do a little bit of experimentation and research yourself to look at, like I say, text area boxes, password boxes, or check boxes. It's not that they're any more difficult than text boxes or option boxes. It's just, you know, it's more, so it'll you know, it's more stuff to learn. So remember, HTML is static, PHP is dynamic. I'm going to show you how to do 3 types of input in an HTML form and send that to a PHP script. If you understand what I'm going to teach you today, doing all the other stuff with forms is going to be very easy for you. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to create the HTML form. So HTML forms are containers like everything else we've been dealing with in PHP and HTML. Basically, you have the beginning of the form and then you have the end of the form. The way you begin the form is you do angle bracket, then you do form, space, action, space equals, quotation marks. What this says, basically it says we are creating a form. And the action for this form is, what the action for this form means is where are we going to send this data. So remember, HTML doesn't do anything other than pass the data over to a PHP script or pass the data over to a different script. So in today's example, we're going to have a script called form underscore script.php. So form space action equals double quotation marks form underscore script.php. What this means, and this is a form that we're creating, and we are going to send the information from the form to a script called form underscore script.php. The action, the equal sign, and then remember we open and close. So there's a double quotation mark to open and a double quotation mark to close. We then say method. So it's space method. Method means how are we sending the information. Now when you get into a little bit higher level or more complicated HTML and PHP, you will have to worry about it. For now, you are always going to say post. So you do say method equals quotation mark, double quotation marks, post, close, double quotation marks. So it says form action equals form underscore script.php method post. Then you close this tag. So this creates the form. It says it's going to send the information in the form to form underscore script.php, and the way that is going to do it is through post. There's also something called get, but don't worry about get. You're just always going to use post right now. Now, I'm going to write all this out on the whiteboard, but then we are going to go to the computer, and I'll actually type everything out to make sure that you can see this and see how all of this really works. Now, again, we open the form, and then we have to close the form. So down here, we're going to close the form. When we close the form, we then say input type. And what we're doing here is we are creating the input button. So what are we going to click in order to submit the information to the form underscore script.php file? So input type space equals submit. So we are creating a submit button. So I'm sure all of you have seen forms with submit buttons. Basically, all we're doing down here is we are creating a submit button. We then say the name of the submit button equals, double quotation marks, submit. And then we say that the value of the submit button is also submit. So the input type equals a submit button. The name of the submit button is a submit. And then the value, that's what actually shows up on the little button, is also submit. And with that, then all we do is we do a / and angle bracket. So this opens the form and this closes the form. So form action, we send the information to the form _script.php by method post. And then we close the form by creating the actual submit button, which is input space type equals submit, name equals submit, value equals submit, / angle bracket. So this creates the form. This says the form begins. This says the form ends. So then, once we create this, we actually have to put something in here. So we have to put a text box so that we can actually submit the information to something. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a normal P. So this is a P tag, a paragraph tag, and then we're just going to say name. Colon. All this is going to do is this is going to print name, colon, on one line of this HTML web page. Then right beside it, we are going to create the actual text box. So then we do another angle bracket. We do input type equals, double quotation marks, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do text. So this is going to be a text box. So this actually creates a text box right beside the name that we have printed out. So after that, we then say what the name of this text box is. Name equals, and then what we're going to do is name. This is going to be used later when we pass this information over to the PHP script. So we create an input type equals text box, and the name of this text box is name. After that, all we do is we say size equals, and then we say how many characters we want this text box to be. So in this example, we'll just do 30, and then we'll do the double quotation marks. After that, we do the / and angle bracket, and that's all there is to it. So this is going to create a text box. Basically, when this prints out on the web browser, the HTML page, it's going to look like name, colon, and then a text box. That is what this is going to do. So with that, if you understand what's going on, it's pretty simple. It just seems a little convoluted as I'm trying to explain all this. But basically, you have form action equals the form script. It passes the information to the script. Method equals post. Name. This is the text box that we're creating. So we're asking for their name. Input type text. Name equals name. Size equals 30. We then actually have to close the paragraph. So that creates one line. That's going to give us this. Then at the end, we're going to create the submit button so we can submit this information to the PHP script. So we'll do input space type equals submit, name equals submit, value equals submit, / and angle bracket. This seems a little bit complicated, but it's really, really not too bad. And if you need any examples, you can just pull up some examples on the internet and basically copy the stuff once you understand what's going on. So this is how you create the form. And this is how you create the text box. So with that, let's go onto the computer. I will type all this out so it makes a little bit more sense, and then show you how this is going to show up on a web browser. I think when you see all this in action, it'll be pretty clear for you. So here we are back at my Windows 7 computer, and I have Notepad++ open. So I'm going to create the form on this page. So form.php will be the form file, and it will send the data from the form
to form_script.php. So this is going to be the form, and then it will send the data, the values to this form_script.php. Now you see I've called this form.php. This is an HTML form, so it could be form.htm or form.html, but you can also use form.php and that will work fine. So since I'm just creating a PHP script, I did the form.php. Now the first thing that we need to do to be proper is to create the HTML page for the HTML form. So this opens an HTML page, then we create the head, then we close the head. So this is all just simple HTML programming that if you're taking this class you should know right now. So this will open the body. So we are going to put the form within the body of this HTML page. So then we're going to come down here, and just to make sure we close everything, I'll close the body and I'll close the HTML. So this opens the HTML page, opens the head, closes the head, opens the body, closes HTML. So now we are going to create the HTML form in here. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do angle bracket, then we're going to do form, space, action, equals, double quotation marks. So this is saying where is the form going to send the data that is collected. So we want to send it to the form_script.php script. So form action, double quotation marks, form_script.php, close double quotation marks. So we are sending this data to the form_script.php script. Then we're going to do space, method. We're going to do equal, double quotation marks, and then we do post. So the method that we are sending this data, again, there are multiple methods to send data, but to make this easy for you, we are simply going to do post, and then I do angle bracket. So this opens the form, says we're going to send the information to the form_script.php, and the way we are going to do it is something called post. So then, as I say, whenever we're doing anything in HTML or PHP, we open something and then we have to close it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of double spaces, and then we're going to close this form. So to close the form, we create the little submit button. So you know the submit button at the bottom of all forms, that's what we're going to do now. So now we'll do input type, equals, double quotation marks, submit. So we are saying that this is a submit button, space, name equals submit, and then value equals submit. And then we do / and then angle bracket. So what we're doing here is whenever you're dealing with these forms, you have to say what kind of input type. What is this thing that we're creating on the form? So we do an input type equals submit. So this is a submit button. So input type equals double quotation mark submit, close double quotation mark. The name. So this is how the HTML and the PHP tracks this particular button within the program. So we name it so we know what it's called so we can call it later. So the name of this particular submit button equals double quotation marks submit, close double quotation marks. And then the value equals double quotation marks submit, uppercase S-U-B-M-I-T. This is the word that is going to show up for the submit button. So we could also do space button, just so you see how this works. Close double quotation marks, then / angle bracket. So here we open the form, here we close the form with a submit button. Now, if we're going to create a text box, all we do is first we have to tell the user what we want. So again, we do a P, so this begins a paragraph, and then we say name, colon. So this is what we are requesting from the user, and now we create the text box itself. So again, angle bracket, input type equals double quotation mark text. So this is saying that this is a text box that we are creating. The name equals, and then we do name. Now remember, in variables, when we're dealing with the PHP, when we're sending data back and forth, uppercase and lowercase matters. So when we call this later, basically it will still have to be the exact same as we put it here. So I have this as all lowercase NAME. So when we call this later, it's going to still have to be all lowercase NAME. But I'll show you that in a bit. And then you do space, and then we want to say what is the size of this text box. So do we want it to be 2 characters or 50 characters? I want it to be 30 characters. So size equals 30. Close, double quotation mark. So whenever you open, you have to close. Then you do forward slash, and then you do angle bracket. So this is opening and closing this input text box. So this is the entirety of the text box, and then we close this paragraph. So what this does is it opens a paragraph, it asks the person the name, then it creates a text box. Angle bracket input space type equals double quotation mark text, close double quotation mark name equals double quotation mark name, close double quotation mark space size equals how big do you want the text box to be, double quotation mark 30, close double quotation mark, then you do forward slash, then you do the angle bracket, then you just close the paragraph like you normally would. So with that, what we're going to do is we're going to do save, and then we're going to upload to my file server. So we now see that it has been uploaded. We will go. We see that I already have this up. So elithecomputerguy.com/test/form.php, and then when I do refresh, look at that. I now have a very, very, very simple form. So it asks for the name, and then there's a text box, Billy Bob. And right now it won't do anything because we haven't created the PHP script yet. But if I hit the submit button, it would then send this name to that PHP script, and then that PHP script would do what it's going to do. So that is all there is for creating the form and then for creating a text box. So again, we have to put all this normal HTML stuff in. We do the body, form action equals, and this is where we're sending this data to. So the form underscore script.php. The method, right now, we're always going to do post. Then we have to close the form. So input type equals submit, name equals submit, value equals submit button. So this value equals submit button is C, that shows up here, submit button. So whatever you want to call this button, that is what you put right there, the value. Then we actually create the text box itself. The first thing we have to do is ask the user, what we're asking them for. So we do P name, and then we create the text box. Input type equals text. The name of this text box is name. The size of the text box is 30. Then we close the text box. Then we close the paragraph. With that, we get this little form here. So it's little name, text box, and then submit button. So that is all there is to creating the form and the text box. So let's go back out to the real world, and then we're going to start talking about option boxes.
So now that we have added a text box to the form, now we want to add an option box. So we've added a text box that asks them for their name. Now we want to create an option box that asks them for their shirt size. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to create the form. We need to have the form as it is. And then we have the text box. Now we need to create the option box code. In order to do that, the first thing that we have to do is tell them what we're asking for. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do P shirt size. So this is going to print out on that web browser shirt size : to ask them basically what is their shirt size. Then what we have to do is we have to create the option box. So to create the option box, again we do angle bracket, and we do select space name equals size. So what this says is we're going to create a select box, space, the name of it is going to be size. So when it passes the value to the PHP script, the value it is going to pass is size. Then all we do is we do angle bracket option value equals small. So what we're doing here is we're creating the first value of small. So we do angle bracket option space value equals double quotation mark small, close double quotation mark angle bracket, and then here we say small again. And then we close the option tag. So we do option space value equals small. Then this right here is what is going to get printed within that option box. And then we close this particular option value. Then under that, we repeat option space value equals, and now we do double quotation mark medium, close double quotation mark angle bracket, then we say medium. Then again, we close this particular option. Then we do the final option of large. Option space value equals double quotation mark large, close double quotation mark angle bracket, then we say large, and then we close this particular option. So this is creating the option box with the name of size, and then we create the first value, the second value, and the third value. Finally, we close the option box simply by doing angle bracket / select angle bracket, and then we close this paragraph just like we normally would, angle bracket / P angle bracket. So what this says is going to print out, and it's going to say shirt size, it's going to ask them, and then this is going to create a drop-down list so that they can select what shirt size they are, small, medium, large. So you create the select box, the name of it is size, then the option value 1 is small. This is what will get printed out in that drop-down box, and you close the option value medium, option value large, then you close the option box, then you close the paragraph, and this is how you create the option box in HTML. Again, we're going to go back onto the computer so I can show you how this is done. It'll be a little less sloppy, it'll be printed in Notepad. But this is all there is to it. Again, it's pretty simple, and once you see it in action, I don't think it's going to be too difficult for you. So with that, let's go onto the computer. I'll print all this out, and you can see how an option box is really created in HTML.
So here we are back at Notepad++. So we have the HTML form created so far. We have that name text box created so far, and we have the submit button. So what we have right now, so you remember, looks like this. So now let's go back to Notepad++ and create an option box. So now what we're going to do is we're going to ask people for their t-shirt size. So again, we have to create the paragraph. So we do the P tag. Then all we do is we do size : So this is simply asking the user what is their size. Now we are going to create the option box. Create the tag, select, then we do name equals size. So when we pass this information to the script, this will become important, the size. So select space name equals double quotation marks size, close double quotation marks, angle bracket. So this is what opens up the option box. This is what starts the option box. And as always, I say whenever you're going to open something, you might as well close it right away so you don't make a mistake. So in order to close the option box, you then do angle bracket / select angle bracket. So that closes the selection box, and then we're going to close the paragraph. So angle bracket / P angle bracket. So this says paragraph size. This opens the option box, this closes the option box, and then it closes the paragraph. And now we put the option values in there. So we're going to say small, medium, and large. So we do angle bracket, option, value equals, and this is the value that is going to be passed to the PHP script. So we'll say small. Do the angle bracket, Then here we type small, and this is what will actually show up in the option box in the drop down. Then we do angle bracket / option, and this closes this particular option value. So the select opens the option box and closes the option box. Option value opens the option value and closes the option value. Now we'll do medium equals, so double quotation marks, close double quotation marks, angle bracket, and then we say medium. Then we close the option box, and then we do large. Then we say so we're going to ask for the size. Then we open the option box with angle bracket select space name equals size. Then option value small. Then this small here is what will actually show up in the option list. Option value medium, option value large. Then we close the option box, and then we close the paragraph. Then all we do is we hit save. And I go over here and I upload to the file server. And then when that is done, we go and I simply hit refresh, and now look at that. This is now our option box. So we have small, we have medium, and we have large. If I go back, just so you understand the difference, this is the value here. So value equals small. This is what will be sent to the script to either be put into a text file, to be put into a database, or to be sent in an email. This here is simply the text that you are going to see in the option box. So if I do option box text like this, just so you see the difference, save, upload. I just want you to see the difference here. So look, so now the first is option box text, medium, large. If I selected this though, when I run the script, it will send the value of small. So this is the value right here. Value equals small, value equals medium, value equals large. This is what gets sent to the script to get processed. What is here between the option value and the close option tag, this is what will show up in that option box. So you see option box text, medium, and large. So now we have seen how to create an HTML form, a text box, and an option box. Let's go back out to the real world, and we'll talk about radio buttons.
So we have the text box. Now we have the option box. The final thing that I'm going to show you how to create on an HTML form today is the radio button. So the radio buttons is one of those little circular buttons, and you have a number of options, and you can only select one of them. So again, so we have the form, we close the form, we have the text box, we have the option box. Now we are going to type the radio button. All you're going to do here is, again, you have to ask the user what you want. So we'll say gender, again, colon. So P, gender, asking what they want. That's not really the form yet. Now we will create the radio button. After this, now we're going to do input type, space type. Now it's equal, double quotation marks, radio. So again, it is a radio button. The name of this radio button will be gender. Equals, double quotation marks, gender. Close double quotation marks. So this is what we're passing to the script. And then we say, what is the value? And so the first value will be girl. Equals girl. Then after this, we do a / and angle bracket. So this is going to create the girl value for the radio button. If somebody selects on it for gender, it'll pass the value of girl. Now after this, we actually do have to write girl so that we get a little radio button in front of the girl. So if they wanted to be girl, they would then click, and that would be the radio button. After that, we then do input type again, because we have to put boy. Then we do type equals, double quotation marks, radio, in double quotation marks, name, it's still gender, equals, gender, double quote, and close double quotation marks, and then value, this is what will get passed to the PHP script, equals, double quotation marks, boy, close double quotation marks, / angle bracket, and then afterwards we write the word boy, and then we close this paragraph. So this would then put the radio button in front of boy. So if somebody clicked this, it would send the value of boy. This is how you create radio buttons. Unlike the select, you don't create a container. You create the individual radio buttons and you tie them together with a name. So name equals gender, name equals gender. This is how you tie radio buttons together. So it's very simple. You're just going to ask them for their gender. Input type equals radio, name equals gender, value equals girl. Then right after it, you say girl. Then input type equals radio, name equals gender, because we're still asking for the gender, value equals boy, and then after that you put boy. That is how you create the radio buttons. Now you could either select girl or you could select boy. You can't select them both at the same time, because then that wouldn't be a radio button. So again, as with everything else I've shown you so far, we're going to go to the computer now. I'm going to type all this out. And again, I think when you see how this works, it's going to seem a lot simpler to you.
So we're back at Notepad++ again. So we have the form, and then we've closed the form. We've created the text box, and we've created the option box for size. Now we are going to ask the person's gender. So I'm going to enter a couple of times. The difference with this between the option box and the radio button is the option box, you actually have to create the option box and then you have to put values in there. With the radio button, what happens is you simply create the radio buttons and then you connect them by the name of the radio button. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do paragraph. So this starts the paragraph for HTML. Then I'm going to ask gender and then colon. Now what I will do is I will do the first radio button. So I do angle bracket, input, type, equals, double quotation marks, radio, close double quotation marks, name equals double quotation marks, gender, close double quotation marks. Then we say the value equals girl, close double quotation marks, and then we do / and angle bracket. This is very important here. So with the radio button, everything is included in this one string here. Like before, you have to open the option value and then you have to close the option value. For the radio button, it's all in this one string. So we say the input type equals double quotation marks radio, the name. So this is what is going to be used to create the variable in the script. You'll understand this better when I create the PHP script. So the name is gender, and the value equals double quotation marks girl, close double quotation marks. The important thing here, the big important thing that you don't forget, is that you put this / before the angle bracket. So when we do these radio buttons, you always put the / before the angle bracket. And then we just press space and then girl. Now, for programming purposes, I'm going to go to the next line. But remember, in HTML, if you don't put a break, everything will show up on the same line. So now I will put in what we need for boy. So we do angle bracket, input, type equals, and I do radio, because it's a radio button, space, name equals, and we say gender again. So this is what connects these radio buttons together. Because remember, you can only select one radio button in a group. Well, what groups radio buttons together is this name here. So name equals gender, name equals gender. This is what groups radio buttons together. Space, and then we say value equals, double quotation marks, boy, close double quotation marks. As I said before, /, then the angle bracket, then we say boy. And then at the end, because we're dealing with HTML programming, we opened this paragraph tag, now we have to just close it. So we do angle bracket. So we open the paragraph tag, and then we have to close it because we're dealing with HTML. So we ask what the gender is. Input type equals radio. Name equals gender. Value equals girl. And then we put girl. We actually print girl. So what will happen is we'll put a little circle in front of the girl. Then input type equals radio. Name equals gender. Value equals boy. And then we print boy, and that will put a little radio button in front of boy. And then we close the paragraph. Now all I have to do is hit save and then upload, as I have been doing. We wait for it to upload. Then I pull this up. And as we can see, we now have the name text box, we have the option box, and we have girl or boy. And you will notice I can only select girl, or I can select boy. I cannot select both, which I guess in the modern world might be like not politically correct. But here, at least, it's politically correct. So it says gender and then radio button, girl or boy. So this way, when you do radio buttons, you could have 2 options. You could have 50 options. You know, this is how it's done. The main thing to remember is that radio buttons are grouped together using this name equals. And so as long as they have the same name, they will be grouped together. If you give them different names, then that creates 2 different radio button sets. So with that, let's go back out to the real world and we'll talk about how to create the actual PHP program.
So now we have created an HTML form that asks for somebody's name, asks for their shirt size, and asks for their gender. So that is the static HTML form. We now need to pass that information to the PHP script. Now, since we're still pretty new to this, what I'm going to show you today is simply how to print the information to the screen. So it'll just print it onto the web browser. In the future, we'll be able to send this information to a file, we'll be able to email the information, or we'll be able to send it to a database. Right now, I just want to be able to show you how to create the values for the variables from the information sent from the form, and then how to simply print it to the screen so you have an idea of how the PHP works. So when you click on that submit button, that is going to send the information to the script that you have already said under the form action. So you're going to have a script that is called form underscore script.php. So in the form action that I created on the form, it's going to send that information to a file called form underscore script.php. And in this script will be the PHP script that's going to deal with the information sent from the form. Now the first thing that we have to do is we have to create and set the variable. So remember, PHP only interacts with the value of variables. So the first thing that we have to do is create the variables and then set the value. So in PHP, in order to do that, remember we use a $, and then we say what the name of the variable is. So we say $name for the name variable. So this will store the value of name. Then all you do is equals, and now we have to get the information from the form. So what you do is you do equals, again you do $underscore, and then you say post. So remember before where we said the method for the form was post? So we say post, then we do bracket, single quotation mark, and then the name of what has been submitted. So now we do name, close a single quotation mark, bracket, and again we do semicolon. So what we're doing is we are creating the variable name, $name, and then we are setting it to be equal to this $underscore post means anything that's getting submitted from the form, bracket, single quotation mark, and then name. So we called the text box name. So that was the value of it. And so that name is what will get submitted here. Then in order to print this information, all you do is you use the print function in PHP. So you do print space, double quotation marks, $, name. Close quotation marks, semicolon. So what happens is we create the value name, we set it equal to $_post name, then we print the value of name, and that will get printed out here. So then it will simply say Bob. So basically, this is all we have to do for everything that is getting submitted from the form. We create the variable, we make it equal to the post, and then whatever the name of the information is being sent to us, and then we will print it out. Again, instead of writing all this out here, we're going to go to the computer. I'll type it all out on the computer so you can see it better. You don't have to worry about my sloppy handwriting. Again, it will make a lot of sense, and again, it is very easy as long as you understand what's going on. We create the variable as we talked before, then we set the value of the variable to the information that's getting posted from the form, then we simply print the value of the variable, so such as Bob. So with that, again, let's go onto the computer. So we're gonna have the form, and then I'll show you how to print all the information from the form simply back onto the screen. And again, it really is pretty simple as long as you take it slow and follow along.
So here we are back at Notepad++. So up to this point, all we have done is create the HTML form. And as I've talked about, remember, HTML is static. It really doesn't do anything. You need some other scripting language to do something. So what I'm going to show you today is how to create a script that will simply print the values that you've taken from this form onto the browser screen. Now, as we go along in this track, I will show you how to send these values to a text file, how to send the values to an email, or how to send these values to a database. But right now, just so you understand how PHP handles this, we are simply going to print the values out on a screen. So, up here, the important thing to remember about the form when you start dealing with the PHP is that up here at form action equals, this right here is the file or the script that the form is going to send all of this data to. So I have created a script here, form_script.php, so this has to equal this right here. Now when we create the PHP script, we are going to have to turn all of the data that is sent from the HTML file into variables within PHP in order for PHP to be able to work with it. Remember, when you're dealing with a PHP programming language, it can really only interact with variables. So that is where the names for all of these different fields will matter. So the name here, where it says name equals name, we are going to grab the information based on this name. So name equals size, we will grab the information based on the name size, and down here, name equals gender, we will grab the information based on that. So this name equals, this is how PHP will be able to figure out the information that's coming over to it. So we go over to PHP script, and of course we open and close the PHP script. So I do the angle bracket, question mark PHP, and then question mark angle bracket. So again, whenever I'm doing scripts, I always open and close when I write something to make sure that I don't forget. Again, a simple little stupid, you forget to close something and then the entire program, nothing works right. So now we have to create the variables. So again, as I talked about in the variables class, in order to create a variable, you have to first start with the $sign. So the first variable that I'm going to do is name. So basically, when I do this PHP script, I want to print out the name, I want to print out the shirt size, and then I want to print out the gender. So I do name, so this creates the variable. I now need to set the variable. So setting the variable is where you give the variable a value. So I do equals, and then this is very important. You have to get this right. So it's $_ uppercase POST. So remember, with the form, we said that the method is post. Well, so for this form script, That's what relates to this. So it's getting the information from post. Then you do bracket, single quotation mark, name, single quotation mark, close bracket, and then what is the last part? That's right, semicolon. Remember, in PHP, the semicolon is a period in a sentence. So whenever you give any kind of command, basically you end with the semicolon. So what this says is it's going to create the variable $name. It's going to be equal to what is getting posted from the form with the name of name. So $name equals $_post. Remember, in PHP, capitalization matters, so make sure this is all uppercase P-O-S-T, bracket, single quotation mark, lowercase name, quotation mark, bracket. Now again, when I'm doing things, I usually do lowercase, just so I don't mess things up. So remember, when I go over to the form, the name for the text box is name. If this was uppercase N-A-M-E, then I would have to make this uppercase N-A-M-E here. Because it's lowercase, then it's lowercase. So remember, capitalization matters. So now we'll do the shirt size. So we'll do $size. This creates the variable size. We get from the post command, bracket, single quotation mark, size. It's all lowercase, again, because I created it as a lowercase in the form. Close bracket, semicolon. Always remember that semicolon. $, then we say gender equals $_post, bracket, single quotation mark, lowercase gender. Again, the lowercase because that's what I created before. And then semicolon. So you always remember those semicolons. So I have now created and set the variables for this PHP script. Name, size, and gender. So this is created as variables, and then it is assigned a value to the variables. So now I can do something with this. So now I can do print, because print command is going to print the information onto the web browser. Then I do double quotation marks. Now what I'll do is I will simply create a paragraph. So remember, we're doing HTML, so we're going to create a paragraph, and then I'll do name, and then do colon. So this is going to print out name, and then after I print out the word name, I want to print out the person's name. So I simply do the $name. So this here is going to print out whatever value is the value of this variable. Then remember, we are doing this in HTML, so we have to do HTML tags in order to get any kind of formatting. So I want to print this on 3 different lines. So I'm going to do an angle bracket /BR. So this is a break. So in HTML, this will break this to a different line. And then I will do size, colon, space, and then I'll do size. So this will print name and the person's name on one line. It breaks it, then puts size and the person's size on a different line. And then I do another break, and then I do gender, then I do colon, space, $gender. And so now on the 3rd line, it will do gender, colon, space, and then whatever the person's gender is. And then we end this by doing bracket and closing the paragraph. So remember, we open, close. So this is going to print. So this is the print function, and it's going to print everything within the double quotation marks. So we do double quotation marks, and we do semicolon, because remember, semicolon is what is at the end. So this, if we open this up more, so it's going to print open paragraph, name, colon, the value of the name. Break, to put this on a different line. Size, colon, whatever the value of the size is. Break, we'll put this on a different line. Gender, colon, whatever the value of gender is, and then we will close the paragraph just like we would in normal HTML. Then we have to open and close in PHP. So we open the double quotation marks here. We have to close the double quotation marks there. So everything in here will get printed out on the screen, and then we do a semicolon. And so this is the whole of the PHP script. We create the variable name. We set the value to what gets posted. with a name of name. We create the variable size. We set the value of what is posted as the name size. We create gender, what is posted with the name gender, and then this is what we print. Then all we do is we hit save. So again, if you're doing Notepad++, make sure you always save so that when you upload the right thing. So we wait for a second. It has now been uploaded. So what we can do is we can go back to our form that we've had. So I'll do refresh, and so I'll put in a name of Billy Bo Bob. I'll put in a size of medium, and I will say I'm a boy, and then I'll hit submit, and look at that. This is printing out the values that I gave it. So the name is Billy Bo Bob. The size, medium, so we see this is lowercase medium because it's the value that got sent over, and the gender is boy, again lowercase because that is the value that was sent over. So those values come from when we look at the form. So we have the text box, and then here for the size, option values small, medium, large, and then down here for the radio buttons for gender, we have girl and we have boy. Now again, since PHP is dynamic, the cool thing is we can say Mary O. Contrary, and we can say that she is a small, as she is a girl, and now we do the submit button, and now that is what we've printed out. Name, Mary O. Contrary, size small, gender girl. This is what I am talking about with PHP being a dynamic programming language. It prints out all of this information on the fly. If we wanted to create a page like this in HTML, we would literally have to open this up with a text editor every time we wanted to change it and put this information in. With PHP, it dynamically writes all this information and dumps it to the screen. So really, that's all there is to the demonstrations for how to create the HTML forms and how to send it to a PHP script. Again, this is pretty simple, but this is the building block for the more complicated things that we are going to do later. The most important thing to realize, though, is remember, programming is not a forgiving profession. You have to do this perfectly. Again, if I go here, I forget a single semicolon because I'm rushing. If I upload this, and then I go here and I hit the submit button, then you're going to get an error. Everything has to be exact. So it's very important to understand that, when you're writing this code, just take your time, make sure everything is perfect. Go over it a couple of times, because a small little thing like a semicolon, if you don't put it there, well, nothing works right. So just make sure you do everything perfectly, and you should be good to go. So with that, let's go back out to the real world and have some final thoughts.
So that's basically all there is to HTML forms and PHP programming. It's very simple, again, if you take it slow and make sure you do everything properly. Again, I am teaching these classes to you in a video environment, so I would suggest that you go out and you pick up one of the PHP programming books so that you have something to follow along with. Again, everything you do in programming is very exact. You have to put the equal sign in the right place. You have to put the dollar sign in the right place. You have to put all this stuff in the right place. So don't feel like you can simply memorize this and move on. You're either going to have to take a lot of notes yourself, or you'll have to have a little book beside you just to make sure that you get everything right. I showed you basically how HTML forms and PHP programming work today. So we created the HTML form, and we closed the HTML form with a submit button. We created the text box, we created the option box, and we created the radio box. Once that form was created, under the form we had form action equals, and that's the script we send the information to. So we had form underscore script.php. That information was sent to that script. That script then turned the information into variables. It set the values of the variables, and then we simply printed out the values of those variables. And that's really all there is to it. As we move forward, we are basically doing the same thing, only we will be printing the information to files, we will be sending emails with the information, or we will be submitting the information to a database. Essentially, it's the same idea. It will just get, as always, just a little more complicated. Again, if you didn't understand this fully, watch this class again, or like I say, get a little PHP programming book and make sure you have the documentation beside you to follow along. Again, it's very, very simple, but very, very exact. If you forget a single quotation mark somewhere, it won't work. If you forget a semicolon somewhere, it won't work. So it has to be very, very, very specific. As long as you can do that, we can move forward, and now, again, we can start getting to some more of the fun stuff. So this is where we can start submitting information to these web pages and doing dynamic things with them. Sending emails, printing to documents, printing to databases, and so on. So, as always, I enjoyed teaching this class. I'm Eli the Computer Guy over here for EliTheComputerGuy.com and EverymanIT.com. This class was HTML forms and PHP programming. It's like the 5th class in this PHP programming track. There will be more classes, but I'm going to tell you at this point, this was a little complicated, so make sure you understand this. What we are going to be doing from here on out, you have to know this. You can't sort of know it. You have to know this in order for us to do the cool things that are coming along. So, as always, I enjoyed teaching this class, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one.